Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of our show, The Docket. As many of you know, and for those of you who don't, The Docket deals with legal issues and entities that affect you and our community. We try to present these things in both an understandable and enjoyable way. So thanks for joining us, and certainly we welcome any feedback or suggestions you might have. We'll be right back with today's guest, so stay tuned. Today we are really lucky. We have Deb Benedict with us, who is the Executive Director of the Humane Society of El Paso. I wanted to make sure I got the name correct.
Thanks, Bob.
And this is just Deb's latest job in the nonprofit community. She's done just about everything anybody could do with nonprofit organizations here in El Paso. But since this is the docket, and since we do speak about legal issues, today we're going to speak about, first we're going to get the information from Deb about the Humane Society, and then we're going to speak about legal issues that affect our pets. So let's start out. I just like, if you give me a minute, Deb, I just want to read your mission statement. This is the mission statement of the Humane Society of El Paso. The mission of the Humane Society of El Paso is to prevent suffering, neglect, abuse, and cruelty to animals, provide information, raise public awareness of animal issues, and promote responsible guardianship and kindness towards all living things. Most of us would take that as a given, but believe me, as we go through this program, we're going to see why laws have had to be written to protect pets. So now back to you, Deb. How long have you been with the Humane Society?
You know, Bob, I started there in December of 2019, and it was the most interesting transition in my life because 2.5 months later, we went into COVID. So it feels in some regards as though it's a second new job that started 1.5 years ago when we were able to reopen to the public and move into business as usual of getting all of our animals new homes, new families.
And just for the audience, tell us where the Humane Society is situated, because it's not necessarily easy to get to.
It's not. It's kind of a challenge for all of us. We're located at 4991 Fred Wilson, which is right across from the Fort Bliss Cemetery, which is usually the easiest marker for everyone in town. And we're right next door to El Paso's Animal Services.
Okay. I'm throwing this out at you. If you're coming from the west side, what would be the easiest way to do it?
If I'm coming from the west side, truthfully, you can get off at the North-South Freeway.
Right.
And take the Fred Wilson exit and turn right. What I always encourage people to do is stay in the right-hand lane, take the exit, and then you're going to circle around underneath the freeway again, and that's the catch for getting to our place. And
that's from the west side.
That's
if you're
from
coming
the west
from
side.
The east side.
From the east side, I'd have to say the easiest way is to get off at Airways.
Right.
And
go up on Airport and
come on down, and again, get off at Fred Wilson.
Get off at Fred Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
But
circle
then that
around
would,
to Fred Wilson.
and circle around again.
Right.
And then I guess the same thing coming from the northeast.
Right.
Okay. I'll tell you, I was up there. I came to visit with you last week or the week before. So impressed with the physical situation. Tell us a little bit about the number of animals you have and how they're kept and who takes care of them.
Sure. You know, for years, the shelter was down by the Coliseum. And so we are so grateful to the vision of so many of our board members and community leaders to say we need someplace that's large, that's able to meet the capacity or the demand that we're asked to serve. So we have three kennels. Each one is designated for a different size dog. We have 50 animals for each kennel, and then we have our Meow House, which houses an untold number of kittens and adult cats. What people don't also know is we also have our foster care program, which is tucked away in a separate building, and that houses a floating number of litters that come in any day of the week. These are litters of puppies, litters of kittens that are in the process of transitioning from our foster families into being placed up for adoption with permanent homes.
Yeah, I would have, just personally, I'm glad you have all these foster families. I have a very hard time fostering animals because I would never want to give them up again.
We have a fair number of foster failures. There's not a staff member who hasn't at least one animal that's a foster failure.
You know, and I think I mentioned to you, my history with pets is for the past 20 years or so. We've just rescued greyhounds. Mm-hmm. And so we've had, I think, seven or nine. I don't remember. And I just had to put the last one down. And oh my God, my house is so, because my wife Jane is up in Chicago for a month or so. So it's just me rumbling around the house. I found myself talking to the quail out back today.
Right.
And when I was up there, I was so impressed with how clean it was. It doesn't smell. You have people in the kennels playing with the dogs. They all seem so happy. I mean, I saw this one little dog, like, could get to the top.
Terrier.
Oh, my God. I thought that dog was just going to escape.
Yep.
It was going to get out of there.
Yeah.
So talking about the need, this is some information you gave me. I was shocked that El Paso has a population of over 850,000 people. Mm-hmm. But based on, and who did you tell me this is based?
Texas Department of Health.
Based on the Texas Department of Health, it's estimated that there are over 430,000 pet animals in town.
Right.
And that's a shocking number
It's
to me.
It's a huge number of animals. And for all of us who are animal lovers, we're keenly aware about how important our pets are. They're really part of our family.
No kidding.
And so I think the importance of the Humane Society is look at the number of animals that don't have homes. They may have been pets at one point. They may have been abandoned. We certainly know that we have people who turn their animals out of the house. We know that we have animals that are not spayed or neutered, and so when they have litters and people are unable to find adoptive families for those litters, we have an additional population of unwanted young animals. And then we have animals that have been living in essence as feral animals.
Right.
Our community cats, the cat communities.
Let's just explain feral for a minute.
Feral are, I don't want to say they're wild animals, but they've been living on their own for such a long time that they may or may not be able or suitable to be living in a family.
Right.
I know just immediately if we think about UTEP, UTEP has a large feral or community cat issue, and I know we've worked with some of their student groups. If we look at Northeast El Paso, we can go any place. Kern Place has an issue with feral animals.
Right.
As we go further east, I know I was working with a clinic outside of Horizon City, and one of the realities that we had to deal with every morning was the fact that not only did people come to the clinic for health care, but we had community members who oftentimes would leave boxes of puppies and kittens at the front door with the assumption that we would find homes for those puppies and kittens. Right? And which was honestly a better and more humane approach than just turning them out in the desert.
Of course.
Because there are a fair number of people who assume they're animals and of course they can live in the desert. Not true.
No.
Right.
And I just, there's something I just want to tell our audience in case people don't know and they need this. I work I volunteer at a place called the Kelly Food Pantry. And I think it's once a month, I'm not positive, it may be a little more frequent, that in addition to being able to go there and get food,
right,
they can get pet food.
Right.
So if just for whoever is listening right now, if you have that need, there are ways to help subsidize the cost of your pet and make their lives better.
And kind of expanding on that, I know Kelly is in partnership with El Pasoans Fighting Hunger.
Right.
And for all of us who keep track of what goes on via Facebook or Twitter, El Pasoans Fighting Hunger regularly publishes a listing of where they're going to be distributing pet food, both dog food
Oh,
and
okay.
cat
So you know
food.
more about that than I
Right,
do.
and
Yeah.
which is really critical because so many people right now, with the increasing costs of gas and food and getting kids back to school, we've got families that are really concerned about whether or not they have the money
Absolutely.
to cover everything. And so being able to tap into these great resources are critical. And also have to make mention of El Paso Animal Services, which is our city
They're next to
organization,
you
which
there.
are next door, will oftentimes run clinics that offer free spay neuter for privately owned pets, as well as immunizations. So we do have resources. All of us are working together to bring in as many of those resources as we can. So if folks are really sweating, how can they take care of their pets? There are things available to them.
So, and again, you're talking, I'm looking at some information you had sent me. Some of your programs include, obviously, pet adoption, but this brings me back to the issue we were just talking about. If you're going to adopt a pet, make sure you have the financial ability to do it.
Right.
You know, don't make it be a drain rather on your family finances. You want to have a pet, you want to love it, you want to have it add joy to your family. You don't want to think of it as a burden.
Right.
You provide some medical services. You do the foster family stuff you were talking about, the spay and neuter. It says Mary Spear Spay and Neuter. Who was Mary Spear?
Mary Spear was an extraordinary woman who, for everyone who deals with community or feral cats, probably knows of her if they didn't meet her. And when she died in the mid-2015s, she left a bequest to the Humane Society to set up a spay-neuter program specifically for community cats, because cats are able to start having litters at a very young age. And so if we're unable to address that, it just compounds exponentially in a very short time. So this is a great example of a community partnership, because we work closely with community trap, neuter, and return programs such as Sun City Cats and El Paso TNR. Both of those organizations specialize in trapping feral or community cats. When they're trapped, what happens is they schedule an appointment with the Humane Society for surgery. And so they bring the cats over to our place, they're spayed or neutered, and then those two organizations take them back out into the community. It's a great program.
Yeah, and it's a great relationship.
It's a great relationship. They're wonderful resources for all of our seniors in town who, and I don't want to say it's a senior issue, but I get a lot of calls from seniors, such as myself.
And me.
And who say, you know, I've been feeding this cute cat who's been coming to my backyard. And that cute cat turned into 3 or 4 other cute cats. And now I have this whole gang out back, and I don't know what to do. While we're not set up to go over and do the trapping,
right,
we do encourage them to reach out to our friends at Sun City Cats or El Paso TNR, who will work together with that person, help them trap the cats, get them spayed and neutered, and make it manageable.
Nice.
Yep.
Tell me give me the definition. We did talk about this. What is a no-kill shelter?
No-kill shelters are shelters that, I mean, on a broad perspective, are shelters who don't say there's a cutoff date. And after that, if you've been at our shelter for this many days or this many months, after that point, we're going to euthanize you. That's on a very simple level. A broader definition is, or a legal definition is, that we have a live adoption rate of 92% or higher. And the reason why I say it's an adoption rate is the truth of it is we do have animals who have been injured or who are ill that we're required to, we euthanize them.
Put down.
Right. And so if you went and said, well, that means you're not a no-kill shelter, we don't handle our animal population through euthanasia.
Again, just talking about that, when I did have my last dog euthanized at your place, I had it at my private vet.
Right.
It is such a humane way to put these animals down if you need to. They get a shot, it relaxes them, kind of puts them to sleep, and then the final shot is given that actually kills them. And for my last dog, it was so peaceful. I couldn't tell the difference between when they put him to sleep and when he actually died. I really appreciate that. I mean, of course, I bawled and I cried, but I knew I did the right thing.
Right.
And I knew that there was no better way for him to die. He just would have suffered with what he was going through. All right, let's talk. I don't think people understand that there are actually some criminal penalties they can face for mistreating animals.
Right.
And I have all of these notes that
as only an attorney can,
yeah.
Right?
And maybe I should have prepared better, memorized these, but they're just some very basic things. And I think if you are an animal lover, you do this just by intuition. But here's something that says the 5 freedoms for pets that are globally recognized as the gold standard in animal welfare, which includes both mental and physical. So we generally adopted our greyhounds in 3s. So this last batch we had 3. One of them died, unfortunately, from some terrible, terrible rattlesnake bites years ago. So we were left with 2. The second one died about 4 months ago, and we were left with this one I told you about. I just had to put down. And he actually had, you could see it, 2 to 3 weeks of depression.
Right.
Just depressed. So there's really a mental aspect to this, and we worked pretty hard with him in that regard. But it was just sad. But I want everybody in the audience to know that there really is a mental attribute to animals. So they include freedom from hunger and thirst. So the issue with hunger, again, is don't adopt a pet if you can't afford it. Freedom from discomfort. So make sure that you have a place for your pet to be comfortable. Once we counted with 3 big greyhounds, I think we had 16 dog beds. Right. In every room and the
wall
patio. Yeah, we wanted them to be comfortable. Freedom from pain, of course. You have to make sure that you take care of your dog's medical needs. And then that can be where you come in or next door to you come in. And you can, I'm sure there are times when veterinarians will take care of a dog pro bono. There are many places you can go to find help. Keep them free from injury and disease, and then let them act as a dog, because that's what they are. You can't get mad at them because they're not human. Excuse me. Everybody, there are lots of laws. Obviously, you have to have your dogs vaccinated. And I say obviously, I think there are probably a lot of people out there that don't have their dogs vaccinated.
And if you think about it, we've all taken drives on the weekend and driven by, I'm going to say, a truck where there's a sign on the back end saying free puppies or puppies for X amount of money. So obviously someone has a dog who's had a litter and now they're trying to sell the puppies. So we know that there's an animal at home that's not spayed or neuter. Have no idea if the dogs that are being purchased are either going to be spayed or neutered or with
Or
immunizations or diseased. One of the things we get into at the Humane Society, and this is why it's really important to understand the difference between what the city animal services does versus what the Humane Society does. If an animal's surrendered or if an animal is picked up off the streets, they go to animal services. It's literally a screening process. If you as a private owner choose to surrender your dog, you've owned the dog, and for whatever the reasons are, you find yourself in the position
unable to care for
you
it.
can't continue caring for it. It may be financial, it may be
You've gotten older.
Your life circumstances have changed. We have folks in the military who are deployed who thought they had someone who could take care of their animal who can't. And so they literally say, I have to surrender my dog, and I want to make sure that they're cared for and that organization finds them a loving home. We have a process when an animal comes in where they're literally screened, because we have to ensure that it's a healthy animal, and part of that is getting their medical records and doing the screening itself. And people ask, because oftentimes when they're walking in the front door with their animal, well, why? You're here to take care of animals. That's right. But when your animal comes in, I have to make sure your dog or cat is healthy, because I also have 200 animals out back who could be affected by the health and well-being of your animal. So one of the things, I have some great adoption counselors. These are folks I have great respect for, that when we have people come in, there's sparkle in their eyes about that cute animal picture they saw on Facebook. And I got to tell you, we've got some cuties, and they'll come in and they go, oh, I want Chaos. And we do have a dog named Chaos. Because he just is, I know that's my dog. And the thing I love about our animal counselors is they very quietly kind of walk through so tell me a little bit, Bob, what kind of home do you have? What do you like to do? Do you like to go running every morning? No. Your knees won't go for it. Do you like to, talk to us about it? Are there other animals in the house? Do you have other dogs there? And they'll say, okay, well, let's meet Chaos, and maybe you would like to meet some other dogs that might work a little bit better. For instance, we had a really interesting young couple come in. They had fallen in love with a dog who was high energy. He was one of the high jumpers, a terrier mix, high jumper, and both people in the family worked all day. And so what they were going to do is crate the dog and not be able to take care of him until they got home after 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. We said, okay, so let's step back. Let's think about how that affects the animal. And then how does that affect you guys? The best thing I can say is having animals is like having little kids in your house sometimes. And my experience with my dogs is when they've been left alone way too long, I start having pieces of furniture missing. And for some people, that doesn't work well. So we try to make sure that the mix is just really
sense,
good. Yeah.
We're going to run out of time because we could talk for hours
Absolutely.
here. I remember when I adopted our first greyhound, I was down at PetSmart or Pet Barn or something like that. I walked in, I said, I'll take that one. They said, well, you can't just take that. We have to come up to your house and this and that. My God, I ran home. I put on a tie and a jacket. I cleaned up the house. I cleaned up the house. I took care of all of it. There's some other legal issues I want to take care of before they kick us off the air here. If you've been convicted of animal cruelty, you'll be prohibited from ever adopting another animal.
That's correct.
And you could be fined. Money.
Right.
And you have to have your dog on a leash when you're out, and it can't be more than 6 feet long. And all of these things, people are going to adopt a pet, need to know what the pet laws are.
Correct.
But now I want to just quickly talk about this issue. And I come up to the Humane Society, and actually my partner Magda Soto and I gave a little talk. Everybody thinks they can leave money to their animals. Mm-hmm. You can't leave money to your animals. You can create a trust for it. You can leave it to another person. I mean, in Texas, even though we think animals are part of our family,
right,
they are our property. Mm-hmm. And you can't leave property to another property. If you have that concern, like Jane and I actually talked about this, the dogs did ultimately pass away before we did, but what was going to happen if we died first? Who was going to take care of the dogs? Luckily, we're in a position where we could make, we never left town without having somebody actually move into our house and mm-hmm. stay with the dogs. So we've had people doing that for 20 years now, and they were all people who weren't people picked up off the street. They're people who knew the dogs well. And so my kids are all out of town. They couldn't take the dogs. Our friends are all our age. So we made arrangements that this person would, they'd get some money to take mm-hmm, care of the dogs, mm-hmm. and they would just take the dogs with them. A lot of people don't have that sort of support system, I'll call it.
Right.
I mean, what would you suggest that they do?
That's a tough one,
It's
Bob.
a very tough one.
That's a real tough one, because I would be heartbroken to think that my dogs would not have someone who really cares about them. Not just it's an okay place to go.
Yeah.
And so before I switch gears, let me talk backup.
Yeah.
Since none of us plan on having an emergency, it's not only important to have a plan, but it's also critically important for people to know that you have a plan.
Yes.
And just as so many of us have emergency instructions taped to the side of our refrigerator or with magnets on the side of our refrigerator, it's also really helpful to have the instructions for your pets up on the side of the refrigerator. That includes what happens if you're in the hospital, who's your vet, et cetera, et cetera. Beyond that, I would also say it's critical to have a backup plan. I have friends who have been slated, not only slated, we had a huge fight about them wanting to take the animals, but I also needed a backup plan. If you don't have someone in town, and that's not unusual, I'd like to propose a couple of options.
All right, we're going to have to propose them pretty quickly.
Propose quickly.
Yes.
So the Humane Society, we've talked a little bit about being available for surrenders. I also want to say my friends out at Animal Rescue League are also available for animals that need to be surrendered. That's a hard conversation to have, but what I would encourage people to do is either call Loretta at the Animal Rescue League or call me at the Humane Society and say, I'd like to come out and visit your place. Don't take my word for it. Come out, see, and say, if something happens, could my animals come and live here?
Well, they can take my word for it, because I was out there, and it's a wonderful facility.
A great place.
I've been out to Loretta's place too, and that's a wonderful facility. I am sorry we have to cut this short. Like I said, we could go on forever and ever. I want to thank everybody for listening today. I think it's been a fascinating conversation, and I hope what you take away from this is you have responsibilities to your pets, but you also have resources in the community if something happens, something goes awry. So, I love pets. Call the Humane Society. And if they can't help you out, they'll send you to some place that can help you out. You want to make donations to people. If you have pets, you like pets, make them to pet-friendly organizations. Yes. I want to thank everybody. You can see all our stuff, the El Paso Community College programs, all of these, they're archived and then they're put on YouTube. So if you ever want to go look, just go there, and we're good. Thank you. We'll see you the next time. Deb, thank you.